Part 38. The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 371. Don't worry, your son is smarter than anyone else, Li Chen reassured. Besides, it's not that I have no arrangements. Muronghongs shouldn't notice it in the short term. Even so, Murong Shui was still worried. Li Chen, are you and Xiaolong hiding something from me? Murong Shui suddenly said, if you are just investigating these things, there is no need to let Xiaolong take risks. Li Chen's face was dull. As expected, you and Xiaolong still have something to hide from me, Murong Shui said angrily. What else do you want to find out? Please speak. Seeing that Li Chen didn't speak, Murong Shui became a little anxious. Xiaolong still wants to investigate the deaths of his grandfather and grandmother. Murong Shui fell into a trance as if she had been struck by lightning. How many secrets does his eldest son control? It turns out that he was hiding it all from himself. Thinking that Li Donglong had to deal with her and the Murong family at such a young age, Murong Shui felt deep regret in her heart. And the news released by Li Chen really shocked her. Li Donglong's grandparents are Li Chen's parents, aren't they? Why are their deaths related to Muronghongs? How can this be? Before this, Muronghongs probably didn't even know about Li Chen's existence, right? Li Chen sighed. He didn't notice that his youngest son Li Nanfei's eyes were particularly bright at this moment. Okay, Shue'er. I promise you, nothing will happen to Xiaolong. Murong Shui was in a very bad mood. Li Biwu had already crawled to Murong Shui's side, stretched out his chubby hand to hold Murong Shui's head, and said obediently, Mom, don't worry, Daddy is very powerful. Murong Shui looked at her little daughter who was conscientiously comforting her, and felt very happy in her heart. Xiao Wu, aren't you worried about your cauldron? Worry, Li Biwu said seriously, Kesu cauldron is also very powerful, and so is Papa. Murong Shui looked at her little daughter blankly, feeling very ashamed. I am actually worse than a little girl. Even Xiao Wu felt that Li Donglong and Li Chen could be solved, but she was worried to death. Mom, I think Xiao Wu is right. It may not be a bad thing for my eldest brother to stay there, Li Nanfei said suddenly. Yes, let's go back with Dad first. As for the eldest brother, I don't think there is anything wrong with him at all. Li Zifeng also looked confident. Murong Shui felt a little uncomfortable. Could it be that her mental quality was too low? You are not here to comfort me. No, brother is a very thief. Li Nanfei shook his head. Worried about big brother? That's not necessary. What he is worried about now is that his eldest brother found out the truth behind it. If it really comes to that point, maybe my mother won't be able to accept it. I and others have no feelings for the Murong family, but my mother is not like that. Murong Shui burst into laughter, knocked Li Nanfei, and said, he is your eldest brother, have you ever said that about him? Seeing his mother smiling, Li Nanfei touched his head and said, Mom, let's follow my father back. Grandpa misses me and Xiao so much. After speaking, he looked at Li Zifeng and said, of course, I miss my second sister too. Li Zifeng pouted, just brag. Grandpa probably doesn't even know he has 4 grandchildren. Speaking of Li Chen's grandfather, Murong Shui's pretty face turned red. She had met him once before. Suddenly it was time to meet her parents. Miraculously, Murong Shui temporarily forgot what happened just now. Li Chen secretly gave Li Zifeng and Li Nanfei alike. Okay, don't think too much, have a good rest today, let's go home tomorrow. Li Chen comforted him, by the way, before leaving here, treat them to a meal. Okay, Murong Shui took a deep breath. After calming down, she still knew clearly what her son's ability level was. Xiaofeng, Xiaofei, call them and ask them to come over for dinner. Okay. Li Zifeng and Li Nanfei looked at each other, then took their mobile phones and started dialing. Uncle. Ah, yeah, Yongin was stunned. He looked at his mobile phone and saw that he had answered the right call. My mother said, let you come over for a meal. Yeah, Yongin reacted immediately and said, okay. Then I'll hang up. Bye, Xiao Feng Feng. Yeah, Yongin smiled. Uncle. Xiao Fei? What's wrong? My dad said, I'll treat you to dinner and come to my house. What? Are you going back? Yuan Chenjiun understood immediately. Yeah, let's go back tomorrow. Okay, we'll come later. After Yuan Chenjiun hung up the phone, he jumped up. Mom and Dad, let's go to Shue'er's house for dinner. Yuan Jiahao, who was working, was startled, then nodded and said, okay. Xiao Wu, can you call your grandma and ask her to come over for dinner? Murong Shui said. Then, do you want grandpa to come over? Li Bu said with eyes that were still a little red. Xiao Wu wants him to come over, Murong Shui asked. A flash of hesitation flashed across Li Bu's face, and he said, I don't want to, Kei-su, Xiao Wu wants a big pot. Murong Shui didn't say anything. Li Bu clumsily took her mobile phone, found Yuan Jiahuai's mobile phone number, and dialed it. Not long after, the call was connected. Grandma, tie me up. Xiao Wu, what's wrong? Mom, let's have dinner, Li Bu said seriously. Yuan Jiahuai's heart trembled slightly when she heard this, and she agreed before hanging up the phone. Murong's house. Yuan Jiahuai was absorbed in holding the phone, and stood up after a long time and walked towards the small courtyard. Li Donglong was reading a book, and Murong Hungs was basking in the sun. Let's eat. Li Donglong raised his head immediately after hearing this, but glanced at Murong Hungs again. Murong Hungs, who closed his eyes and basked in the sun, waved his hand lightly and said, I won't go, it's not pleasing to go, Xiao Long go with you. Looking at the man in the wheelchair, Yuan Jiahuai said coldly, Xiao asked you to go together. Suddenly, Murong Hungs opened his eyes fiercely, and smiled under Li Donglong's gaze, come, push me over. Li Chen cooked a lot of dishes. This should be the only time the whole family sat down to eat. Since what happened 10 years ago, the relationship between the three families has almost fallen apart. Yuan Jiahao, Huang Yingcheng, and their son Yuan Chenjiun arrived early, followed by Ye Zixian, Yuan Jiahong and Ye Yonggan's family of three. Finally, it was Murong Hungs, Yuan Jiahuai, and Li Donglong. In fact, the three families knew that after this meal, Li Chen and Murong Shui would leave the capital. However, now the three families no longer mentioned the past and the future. At the moment, nothing happened at that time. The Yuan and Ye families were not surprised by Murong Hung's appearance. During this meal, no one mentioned anything unhappy, which was also a farewell before leaving. The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 372. At the table, everyone was chatting happily. After drinking and eating, Ye Zixian, Yuan Jiahao and Murong Hungs were drinking tea in the sun on the grass in the courtyard outside. At this time, the three of them had formed two camps invisibly. Although they are all relatives, they are somewhat alienated. Inside the house, Murong Shui was staying with Yuan Jiahuai and others, with 4 dolls. In the restaurant, only Li Chen, Ye Yonggan and Yuan Chenjiun were left. Li Chen picked up a piece of stewed fish fillet and said, we will go back tomorrow. This place, I will come back to visit during the holidays. Ye Yonggan and Yuan Chenjiun nodded, they had expected it. The Zheng family, the He family and the Mu family will not give up. Be prepared, Ye Yonggan reminded. I know. Li Chen smiled, raised his glass, and the three of them drank it down. How could the three major families have no hidden secrets? With the security bureau here, the martial arts masters would not dare to use force in the capital. However, once the three of them stabilize the situation, you two should be completely on your feet. It's all thanks to you, Yuan Chenjiun smiled bitterly, but don't worry, their good days will probably come to an end. I have confidence in you, Li Chen said with a smile. Xiaolong, I will ask you two to take care of me from now on. This is necessary. Ye Yonggan patted his chest and promised, when we are done, we will go to the village to see you and Shuer. Okay, the three of them raised their glasses and drank it all. Eventually, all three families left. Li Chen hugged Li Biwu and sat on the grass to bask in the sun. Li Donglong was sitting aside, washing strawberries for Li Biwu. Cauldron, Li Biwu bit off the red tip of the strawberry and shouted with squinted eyes. Li Donglong looked at the strawberry butt handed over by Li Biwu and said helplessly, "You give it to Dad." "No, just give it a try," Li Biwu said coquettishly. Although Li Donglong was a little reluctant, he thought that he might not be able to see his stupid sister for a while, so he opened his mouth. Li Biwu put the strawberry butt into Li Donglong's mouth. Seeing that Li Donglong had actually eaten it, he danced happily. Li Chen closed his eyes and said, "Xiao Wu, if you push harder, Dad's belly will be deflated by you." As soon as these words came out, Li Biwu was so frightened that he stood up immediately and looked down at Li Chen's belly, which only had abdominal muscles. He poked it again with his white and tender little finger, making Li Chen itchy. "Huo, my belly is not bad." Li Biwu sat down again, and Li Chen's face turned blue. Seeing this scene, Li Donglong couldn't help but feel sorry for Li Chen for a second. "Stay with the old guy and remember to be smart." "Good. Talk to your mother for a while. Your mother is most worried about you." "Good. How about I find you a wife? Get married when you are 22. Li Donglong's handsome face flushed extremely red. I don't want it." "What? Do you dislike Dad's opinion? That little girl from our village is pretty good, just ask Xiao Wu." Li Biwu, who was nibbling strawberries, looked up suddenly and found that Li Chen was blinking at her, so he nodded heavily. "Although Jijideo's daddy is Sui. Anyway, just nod." I'm going to find my mother." Lin Donglong ran away with a monkey's ass face. Belch. Li Biwu burped and was about to give the remaining strawberry butt to Li Donglong when he realized that the cauldron was gone. "Daddy. Are you a strawberry? Dad doesn't eat it, but your elder brother likes it. Send it to him quickly." "Okay." Li Biwu hugged a pot of strawberry butt and went after Li Donglong. When the foodie left, Li Chen couldn't help but laugh. "Dad." Li Nanfei climbed to Li Chen's side and leaned on Li Chen's arm. Can you find me a wife?" "Ahem." Li Chen choked on his saliva and closed his eyes. He glanced at his youngest son suspiciously and asked, "You're still young. Then why are you looking for big brother?" Li Nanfei asked. "Your eldest brother is not young anymore. He's only 9 years old," Li Nanfei said unconvinced. "You're only 5. "Oh, that's right." Li Nanfei smiled, waved to Li Zifeng and said, "Second sister, second sister." Li Zifeng leaned on Li Chen's other side, staring with big eyes. "Dad, let me ask you a question." "You ask. How did you meet my mother in the first place?" Li Chen opened his eyes, glanced at the chicken thief's youngest son and said, "What? Are you asking for information?" "Hey, no, no," Li Nanfei pushed, "my second sister and I are very curious, how on earth were we born?" Li Zifeng's beautiful peach blossom eyes also shone with excitement and curiosity. "This is one of the most curious things about these brothers and sisters right now." Li Chen was slightly stunned when he saw the sincere eyes of the two children. "Yes, these 4 children's tests are my own, but how did they come about?" He really hasn't delved into this issue. Now that I think about it again, I find that some things in my memory seem to be broken. It seems, lost. Vaguely, he remembered that he seemed to be taken somewhere by someone. But if I think about it carefully, I still can't remember it. Seeing Li Chen's face gradually becoming solemn, Li Nanfei was also a little scared. "Dad, don't be angry. If you don't want to say it, I won't ask any more." Li Chen rubbed Li Nanfei's head and said, "Dad is not angry, but after your reminder just now, I found that I always feel that some problems are not right." Li Nanfei and Li Zifeng lay on Li Chen's chest at the same time. "What's the problem? How did you get here? Isn't this nonsense? We just asked you because we don't know." Li Chen said, "I'll ask your mother tonight." "Okay." Li Nanfei and Li Zifeng saw that Li Chen didn't look like he was lying. After looking at each other, they decisively changed the topic. "You said, when we go back, should we bring some gifts to the great-grandfather?" Li Zifeng asked a little shyly. Now, except for Li Donglong who can't go back, she and her mother have never seen the great-grandfather. If they really see him, what if the great-grandfather doesn't like her? Li Zifeng longs for family affection, but is afraid that her great-grandfather is the same as her grandfather. "Do you want to take her?" Li Chen asked, looking at his sensitive eldest daughter. "Yeah," Li Zifeng nodded obediently. "Then let's buy some things tonight and go back tomorrow morning." Li Chen smiled and said, "Then I'll take you to the mountains to hunt, go fishing and play in the mud, and let your great-grandfather ride a wooden horse for you. How about that?" Listening to what Li Chen said, Li Zifeng showed a yearning look. "Okay," Li Zifeng nodded heavily and rushed into the house. Obviously, the little girl was very excited. As Li Nanfei, who had already been there, showed contempt for his sister. Look at the second sister's achievements. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 373. Go, 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 Li Nanfei waved his fists excitedly. Compared to living in the countryside, Li Nanfei and his friends did not feel much happiness when they were in the capital. When it was time to return to the village, both Li Nanfei and Li Biwu were so excited. Green onion. Li Biwu struggled and slipped out of Murongxiu's arms like a loach, and wanted to chase Sangguo. "This girl, don't look at her, sometimes silly and sometimes clever. But after all, she is still a child of more than 3 years old." Seeing Li Nanfei excitedly rushing to the supermarket, Li Biwu naturally wanted to be Sangguo's follower. Li Zifeng became the leader. When Li Donglong was not around, she could suppress her younger brothers and sisters with force alone. When Li Zifeng held Li Nanfei and Li Biwu's hands, like a wild horse running away, Murongxiu also showed a rare smile. "Run slower, don't fall down. Got it?" Jideo. Li Biwu's short legs were moving very fast at this time. Otherwise, he would not be able to catch up with Sangguo and Erg. Li Chen couldn't help but smile when he saw the 3 little ones running ahead of the old man. He himself didn't expect that he would experience so much during this trip to the capital. However, now that he has a child and a wife, Li Chen is very satisfied. Although there are still many doubts that have not been solved, Li Chen is not very anxious. Li Chen quietly approached Murongxue and was about to take Murongxue's hand. Murongxue suddenly said, "What does Grandpa like?" At this time, Murongxue's pretty face was pink and tender, with a hint of pink. Isn't Li Zifeng's peach blossom eyes inherited from Murongxue? It seems to be like autumn water, bright and moving, and fascinating. Even if Li Chen faces it every day, he feels that he can't see enough. Li Chen. As long as it's bought by you, my grandfather will definitely like it. Li Chen laughed. You're just a talker, Murongxue rolled her eyes at Li Chen. Although she said so, she was sweet in her heart. Women always say one thing and mean another. She can choose not to listen to some words, but you can't help but say them. Li Chen could see that Murongxue was extremely worried and nervous now. After all, her identity was not so easy for ordinary families to accept. Many people may like it very much in the entertainment industry, but few will accept it. Murong Shui was naturally worried and concerned, so she couldn't help but think too much. Then, "What is that?" Li Chen pinched Murong Shui's face and whispered, "If my grandfather knew you, he would definitely be very satisfied with you as his granddaughter-in-law." "Don't worry." Murong Shui's pretty face became even redder. She was still a little overwhelmed by Li Chen's teasing in public. "I won't talk to you anymore, you just know it's not serious." Murong Shui was about to turn around and leave, but she was stopped by Li Chen. He looked at Murong Shui affectionately, like a furnace, with scorching flames. "Shui, do you know what the happiest number is for me?" Li Chen said in a low voice, quietly approaching a little. Murong Shui's eyes were a little evasive. What did this guy want to do in broad daylight? "What is it?" "Guess," Li Chen encouraged. 6. 8. "None of them are right, it's 5, Li Chen shook his head and said. Murong Shui showed a puzzled look, and didn't care about Li Chen, who was almost sticking to her, and asked, "Why is it 5? Stretch out your right hand." After the words fell, Murong Shui obediently stretched out her right hand and looked at Li Chen blankly. Li Chen smiled, stretched out his left hand and held Murong Shui's right hand tightly with his fingers, saying, "Look, isn't this my happiest number?" Murong Shui was stunned for a second or two. Then her pretty face suddenly turned red like a monkey's butt, and she wanted to struggle away. As a result, this little hand was tightly held by Li Chen. "Ha ha ha." Li Chen smiled proudly. Murong Shui shook her head helplessly. Why did she feel that this guy was getting more and more out of tune recently? However, feeling the warmth from Li Chen's palm, Murong Shui felt warm in her heart again. "Did you often tease girls like this before?" "Impossible. I didn't." "Don't talk nonsense," Li Chen denied 3 times in a row. Murong Shui snorted. Whether he did or not, it didn't matter now. After all, Li Chen belonged to her in the future. "Daddy." Li Bu was stared with big eyes, his eyes fell on Murong Shui's little hand held by Li Chen. I wanted to. Li Bu was about to rush over, but she was pulled back by Li Zifeng and Li Nanfei at the same time. "What are you going to do?" Li Nanfei knocked on the stupid sister's forehead speechlessly. "Xiao Wu also wants to hold hands." "Aren't I holding yours?" "I want to be with my daddy and mommy." Li Bu was struggled, she always liked the new and disliked the old. Li Zifeng sighed, "There are lollipops in front, do you want to go?" Li Bu paused, glanced at Li Chen and Murong Xiu, and resolutely gave up holding hands. "Li Chen." "Murong Xiu." Li Chen couldn't help laughing, and said, "Xiao Wu's nature is a foodie." Murong Xiu's cold eyes swept over, as if to say, "Dare you say it out loud?" "Ahem. Follow me," Li Chen laughed dryly, "can't you say this anymore?" "Supermarket. I want to introduce one." Li Bei is not a tall dancer, but the things he bought are taller than her. "Are you buying it for yourself or for your great-grandfather?" Murong Shui asked. I bought it for my great-grandpa." "Your great-grandfather can eat popsicles." Li Bu chuckled and said, "Grandpa and Xiao Wu are together." Murong Shui. Li Chen acted as a loyal escort, including, of course, the cart pushers. "Xiao Fei, come here," Li Chen pointed at the small cart. Li Nanfei wanted to escape, but Li Chen twisted him up with one hand and put him in front of the cart. Pushing. Li Nanfei looked at Li Chen with a bitter look on his handsome little face, looking desperate. "I'm still a child." "You're a man too." "But I'm only 5. "So, you help Xiao Wu push things." "I'll help your mother and your sister." Li Nanfei looked dull. He couldn't find a reason to refute. Therefore, The two men from the Li family, one large and one small, acted as tools and part-time companions. Dad. Ah. It's only summer now. Is it appropriate for my mother to buy cotton pants for my great-grandpa? You know what the heck, this is nip in the bud. What about buying warm gloves for grandpa? I'm afraid your great-grandfather will get cold. What about the electric blankets for the elderly that we buy now? Probably, well, I can't make it up anymore. Go and stop your mother. Li Nanfei's eyes widened. Why don't you go? The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 374. Ah. Li Nanfei stuck his butt out and dragged the hundreds of pounds of things he bought into the house with great effort. Finally, he sat on the ground. Xiao, come and take a bath. Okay, Li Biwa rushed to the bathroom happily. She didn't like Murongxiu taking her to take a bath, she preferred Li Chen to help her. Because Li Chen could allow her to play with water, but Murongxiu wouldn't. In order to play with water, Li Biwa ruthlessly rejected her mother. Hee. Li Biwa's hair was wet, and Li Chen's clothes were also wet. Li Chen just let the little girl make a fuss. Seeing that the time was almost up, Li Chen said, enough, if you play again, we will be beaten. Can't daddy beat mommy? I can't beat her. Li Biwa's chubby little body trembled, and she quickly asked daddy for help. Li Biwa, with wet hair, saw his mother staring at him as soon as he went out, and his heart tightened. Let's go blow dry our hair. Li Biwa's little body trembled again, and he shook his head and said, I want my mother to blow it. Without waiting for Li Chen to speak, Li Biwa rushed to Murongxue. So, Murongxue's face turned from cloudy to sunny. Li Chen looked at his wet appearance, sighed, and twisted Li Nanfei, who had not yet planned to take a bath, into the bathroom. Mom, I don't want to take a bath with Dad, Mom. Li Nanfei shouted at the top of his voice, he didn't want to take a bath with Dad at all. But he had no right to refuse. Li Nanfei now knew clearly that what Dad helped him take a bath, that was all fake. He knew that Li Chen just wanted to find a free labor to help him rub his back. Hurry up, you haven't eaten yet, Li Chen urged while sitting on a small stool. Li Nanfei gritted his teeth and said, I'm still a child. 5 years old. Li Nanfei sighed. When he met such a father, he really had no way to deal with it. Thinking of the scenes dominated by Li Chen these days, Li Nanfei took a deep breath. You wait for me. When I go back, I will let my great-grandfather beat you. Li Nanfei chose to be patient very cleverly, because he knew that he could not beat his father. But the great-grandfather was different. It was natural for him to beat his father. After the family took a bath, they lay comfortably on the sofa like Geu. Have you packed all your things? Murongxue asked. There are all over there. Li Nanfei stuffed a small piece of pineapple into the mouth of Li Biwa, who had opened his mouth, and then said. Li Biwa nodded while enjoying the feeding of 3 pots. The family lay like this until more than 9 o'clock, and they all started yawning. Li Chen held Li Biwa, whose belly was bulging, and gently put her on the bed. Murongxue and Li Chen then lay down on the left and right of Li Biwa. Shue. Murongxue turned slightly and looked at Li Chen with gentle eyes. I have a question that I can't figure out. You say. These 4 children. Li Chen still asked the question in his heart. Murongxue's pretty face flushed slightly when she heard it. Strictly speaking, although she gave birth to 4 children. But love and other aspects are actually relatively blank. After hearing what Li Chen said, she said softly, didn't you donate it? Li Chen widened his eyes and looked incredible. I donated it? Seeing Li Chen's face with a completely unaware look, Murongxue was also stunned. You don't remember? Murongxue's heart tightened. I have no impression at all. Li Chen rubbed his head, and he suddenly felt a little painful when he thought of these things. Seeing Li Chen's confused and somewhat painful expression, Murong Shui immediately grabbed Li Chen's hand and said, "Don't worry, don't think about it now if you can't figure it out." After Li Chen stopped thinking, his expression eased a lot. That's not right. Logically speaking, even if there are archive records of the donated items, you shouldn't know about it. After all, this aspect is confidential. Li Chen could only analyze it from this perspective. After Li Chen said this, Murong Shui shook her head and said, "The latest inventory at that time, which maintained its activity and quality very well, was the only one you had. And, I could see the information at that time." Hearing this, Li Chen widened his eyes. "This is impossible." When Murong Shui saw Li Chen was so sure, she also had doubts in her heart. "You mean, there are too many coincidences behind all this?" Li Chen nodded and whispered, "Think about it, although technology is advanced nowadays, this aspect is actually strictly confidential, but in my memory, this section seems to be blank. Let's not talk about it for now. Let's talk about you. At that time, you wanted to use pregnancy to get rid of the marriage, but what a coincidence, at that time, only mine was qualified in the inventory, and what's more, you can still see my information. Don't you think this is a bit too coincidental and perfect?" Murong Shui was stunned, and then said, "Actually, I didn't tell you one thing." As she spoke, Murong Shui's face became redder. "What?" Li Chen was even more curious. "At that time, I was actually in Rongcheng. At that time, I was thinking." Murong Shui said here, closed her eyes and said, "Thinking of forcing you." His. Li Chen was shocked. He covered his chest with his hands and said shyly, "I didn't expect you to covet my beauty and body 10 years ago." Murong Shui was choked when she heard this. She wanted to kick this shameless guy, but when she saw Li Bu was sleeping, she held back. "That's not right," Li Chen began to speak seriously. "You want to occupy me, and then what? I don't remember you occupying me, so how do you find my donation?" "Because my informant told me at the time that you just donated a large amount of inventory on that day." Wait a minute, Li Chen suddenly grasped this point. He felt that something might have surfaced. "You mean, you were going to take me over, but because of the clues provided by the informant, you took a detour to go there. Coincidentally, I had just donated that day? And then you happened to see my information, so you, well, divided it into 4 babies and successfully hid for 10 years. Well, that's about it." Murong Shui is not stupid. When she heard Li Chen's words, she already understood the trick. All this seemed like God was helping him. But now thinking about it carefully, it was too coincidental. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? But if you think about it carefully, every step in it is actually carefully designed. If not, Murong Shui would most likely not choose it. So, the other party deliberately let Murong Shui choose Li Chen. Then a new problem arises. Li Chen doesn't remember that he went to donate. What happened in this? The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 375. Li Chen fell into deep thought. As more and more things and details were learned now, Li Chen realized that someone seemed to be playing a big game of chess. And he and Shui, including the several children born, seemed to have become pawns. Even the dead parents suffered because of this. From the mismatched details, Li Chen became suspicious. A certain memory that I have lost is very likely related to what happened here. So, why did I donate during that time? And why was that memory completely lost afterwards? Who is doing this? What is their ultimate goal? It seems that this matter can only be investigated after going back. It's time to seek justice for our parents. Li Chen. I'm fine. Li Chen showed a smile. Get some rest early. Okay. Murong Shui turned slightly sideways, kissed Li Chen's cheek, and said shyly, Good night. Good night, Li Chen fell asleep with a smile. Xianyuan family. The garden looks beautiful under the night view. Xianyuan Bingguo leaned elegantly on the sofa, holding a bottle of wine, and was in a very good mood. Brother, it's alive, it's all alive, Xiaohu shouted excitedly. Got it, Xianyuan Bingguo was not surprised because he had seen it a long time ago. That brother Li Chen is so awesome, Xiaohu said, tilting his head. Hearing this, Xianyuan Bingguo was stunned and smiled. Yes, it is quite powerful. Xiaohu came closer to Xianyuan Bingguo. Aren't these all saved? Why do you still seem to be troubled? You don't understand, Xianyuan Bingguo shook his head. Then tell me about it. Xianyuan Bingguo glanced at the little guy, and then couldn't help but said, today Li Chen delivered 1,334 billion to the Murong family. I know this. The entire capital knows it. It's big news now. So where did this more than 100 billion come from? Xiaohu was stunned when he heard this, and then said, it should be his own savings, right? Xianyuan Bingguo shook her head and said, we have investigated and found that although he also has a business, he can only survive with only 20 to 30 billion at most. Then the Ye family and the Yuan family can also help. The Ye family transferred more than 70 billion to Li Chen. This still robbed the Xiang family of money. The Yuan family, the amount transferred was only 20 billion. That's enough. Not enough, Xianyuan Bingju said, the actual transfers are not that many. No, the outside world has said that brother Li Chen also invested in the Pan family's drunken concubine wine. Is this so? Xianyuan Bingguo's eyes lit up slightly, and she immediately picked up the information. The Pan family, Zy Feiju actually made 30 to 40 billion. So after all, it's barely enough. However, he always felt that something was not quite right, but he couldn't place it. Is this what you're thinking about? Xiaohu felt bored. Of course not, Xianyuan Bingju said, I also discovered an interesting thing recently. What is it? Li Chen's parents are dead, and Li Chen seems to have problems too. Xianyuan Bingguo smiled and said, very interesting. Weren't Li Chen's parents forced to death by the four major families in Chengdu? Xiaohu asked while holding the information. No, no, no. The details don't match up, Xianyuan Bingguo shook her head. This Li family was amazing back then. Speaking of which, it seems that it was the most powerful family in the capital 120 years ago. The little tiger on the side widened his eyes. He really didn't know this news. A wealthy family from more than 100 years ago. Then why did you go to a small place? The capital is in chaos. Now the Zheng family, the Mu family, and the He family are all in dire straits. I estimate that when they stabilize this time, the Ye family and the Yuan family will be able to compete with them. As for the Li family's affairs, forget it, let's not talk about this. Xianyuan Bingguo shook her head and said, I believe that Li Chen, a smart man, will also react. Let's just watch the show. Murong family. Murong Hungs waved to Murong Qingying who was beside him, and Murong Qingying immediately pushed him towards the basement. After all, Murong Qingying was a powerful master. He was lying in the hospital because the situation required it. Now that it is no longer needed, he will naturally recover. In the dark basement, Murong Hungs looked at the figure sitting cross-legged here and said, Ancestor. The figure remained motionless and spoke calmly, with a slightly hoarse voice, is it solved? Solved. Is it all solved by Li Hoqiang's son? Yes. Interesting, the figure smiled and said, it's been 120 years. I didn't expect that the rumors were actually true. So, Ancestor has a chance. Of course there is a chance, the figure nodded, then the Li family boy wants to go back. Yes. It doesn't matter whether he goes back or not, he will never know the truth, the figure murmured, pay close attention to what's going on over there and report back at any time. In addition, you should also pay attention to the Xianyuan family and the Sidu family. Murongheng showed a puzzled look. He didn't understand what the two families were involved in. But since the ancestor said it, he naturally wouldn't refute anything. Ancestor, I don't know about that thing. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Yes. Under the push of Murong Qingying, Murongheng slowly left the basement. At this time, Murongheng's face was shrouded in shadows, and no one could see how gloomy his face was. Brother. After Murongheng's return to the house, Murongheng Chuan came over immediately. Have you dealt with it all? All dealt with, Murongheng Chuan said cautiously. Next, it is the transformation period of the Murong family, Murongheng said calmly. Whether our Murong family can move to a higher level depends on this period of time. The mess of the Zheng family, the Mu family and the He family cannot be cleaned up for a while. Do you understand? Understand. It's best to understand it, so do it well. Whether our Murong family can enter the first level depends on this time. Yes, Murongheng Chuan said excitedly immediately. He had figured it out. He didn't have that ability, so he just lay down and it was done. After Murongheng Chuan left, Murongheng showed a trace of fatigue and asked, Are Li Chen and Shui going to leave tomorrow? Yes. The tickets have been bought, Murong Qingying said. It's good to leave, Murongheng said, at least, life there will be happier. But Lulei. Isn't it good that our Murong family has one more grandmaster? Murongheng's looked playful. Li Chen asked him to protect Xiaolong, isn't this just right? Murong Qingying heard this and stopped talking. He always felt that the head of the family was thinking more and more deeply. What was he planning? Is it related to Li Chen's family? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 376. Li Chen was still confused, but he always felt like someone was poking his nostril. Ah, sneeze. Li Chen stood up and felt as if he had lost weight on his stomach. When he opened his eyes, he saw Li Biwu lying on the side with his arms stretched out. Xiao Wu. Li Biwu couldn't get up after crawling for 2 times, then rolled sideways and stood next to Li Chen, shouting angrily, Stinky Daddy. Li Chen looked at Li Biwu's angry look and said, You little fat guy is sitting on Daddy's belly and you are tickling me. Dad will definitely not be able to bear it. Humph, Li Biwu pouted and turned around, holding a chicken coop on his head and sliding out of bed. I'm going to find Mom. Li Chen glanced to the side and saw that Murong Shui was no longer in the room. I guess I have to pack my things. Thinking of this, Li Chen couldn't help but smile bitterly. She didn't sleep all night last night, right? Li Chen got up immediately, and sure enough, he saw that besides himself, Li Zifeng and Li Nanfei were also up. Morning. Good morning, Dad. Li Zifeng gradually became familiar with Li Chen, and naturally they became friendly. Looking at his son and daughter's chicken coop haircuts of the same style, Li Chen said eagerly, Xiaofeng, come on, Daddy will help you comb your hair. Li Zifeng's smile suddenly faded. She pushed the confused Li Nanfei forward and said, I think Xiaofia needs your help now. After saying that, he opened his long legs and walked straight towards Murong Shui. Li Nanfei and Li Chen looked at each other, then walked to the bathroom admiring each other. Seeing this, sisters Li Zifeng and Li Biwu breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Murong Shui, who was watching the whole process, poked Li Zifeng's forehead with her finger and whispered, If you dislike it, please don't be so obvious, okay? Hearing what her mother said, Li Zifeng pointed to her scalp with great grievance and said, Look, this is the result of my father combing my hair yesterday. I'm going to be bald. Murong Shui couldn't help laughing. After combing Li Bu's hair twice, she began to comb Li Zifeng's hair. Little girls don't have to pay so much attention, a beautiful single ponytail is enough. I'm going to see your great-grandfather today. You have to be gentle and look like a girl. Do you understand? Yeah, Li Zifeng nodded heavily, I must be a lady today. She warned herself like this, at least, she has to stay a lady for one day. Li Chen and Li Nanfei walked out of the bathroom, their hair, naturally not styled. Simply comb it out so it doesn't look like a chicken coop. By the way, where are the things we bought last night? Murong Shui asked. I'll have someone deliver it by courier first. Li Chen made up a reason casually. In fact, he had all those things stored in his own space. Okay, Murong Shui changed her clothes early and handed the key to Wu Ma. Wu Ma, please take care of me during this period. We will be back when the time comes. Okay, Wu Ma's face was full of smiles. Seeing that Murong Shui no longer had a sad look on her face, she was really happy from the bottom of her heart. Just seeing Murong Shui leaving with her child made her feel quite sad. After all, she would have to help Murong Shui guard this big house by herself. Let's go, Li Chen shouted. Thick hair, Li Bu was shouted excitedly, carrying his cute little backpack. The driver at the door has been waiting for a long time. This family of 5 went straight to the airport. As for Li Chen's cars, he didn't touch them, including the one he bought for nearly 100 million. Anyway, if Ye Yonggan wants it at that time, he can transfer it to Ye Yonggan at a cheap price and be done with it. Ljiakan. Li Chuanlong looked in the mirror and carefully combed his already grey hair. Wow, ow. Daodu, who had lost his original hair and turned grey-white, shouted urgingly from the side. What's your name? Li Chuanlong glared at Daodu, who looked more and more like a wolf cub. Daodu was jumping vigorously behind him. It overheard Li Chuanlong's call and knew that the master and his little master were coming back. I'm so excited. Ouch. Li Chuanlong kicked Daodu, but unexpectedly Daodu got out of the way and stared with an anthropomorphic smile, as if to say, you can't kick me. Li Chuanlong didn't bother to argue with the dog, so he changed into new clothes and finally thinned out his beard. Finally, he looked in the mirror and nodded with satisfaction. Seeing that Li Chuanlong had gotten up, Daodu rushed out of the house. Li Chuanlong pushed his bicycle and hung up the basket. Daodu jumped up on the spot and landed firmly on the bicycle. Finally, he fell into the basket, with the dog's head exposed. Li Chuanlong rode slowly, with a smile on his face. The grandson and great-grandson are coming back. It is said that this time even the grandson-in-law is brought back. How could he not be happy? From now on, old man, I will focus on taking care of my grandchildren. As for farming and so on, I will let Li Chen do it. I wonder if this granddaughter-in-law is easy to get along with? Li Chuanlong was still a little uneasy, but he wasn't too worried. At least Lao Li's family has an heir, so even if he dies, he has nothing to worry about. Ouch. Stop barking! Li Chuanlong was interrupted from his thoughts and glared at the dog, which was becoming more and more wolfish. You said you are a dog, what do you call a wolf if you have nothing to do? Sometimes, Li Chuanlong suspected that what he raised was not a dog, but a wolf. Now, the cement roads in the village have been paved, and the village has also ushered in signs of vigorous development. Now, the cultivation of Chinese herbal medicines in the village is getting better and better. With Zhao Hualiang backing them up, there is no need to worry about no one collecting the things in the village. Even the village bully Zhou Zhang bowed to Li Chen, and even when Li Chen was not around, he took the initiative to help manage things and reconcile conflicts, which is very rare. The villagers are not used to Zhou Jiang's evil deeds in the past, but they are also quite relieved to see him change his appearance now. The group of people in Zhujiawan are now very well behaved. After all, They all want to make money and don't want to be driven out. Li Chuanlong was thinking in a mess, and saw Daodu suddenly jumped out of the car and rushed out. Daodu! Li Chuanlong shouted, why did this dead dog suddenly jump down? As soon as Li Chuanlong looked up, he saw a car slowly approaching from the entrance of the village. He couldn't help but slow down, but Daodu had already rushed up. Until the car slowly stopped in front of Daodu. Li Chuanlong got out of the car and watched with tears in his eyes. Daodu! Ah! Daodu saw Li Bu was sticking his head out of the car window and immediately jumped up, spinning around in excitement. Ha ha ha, Daodu, how big have you grown? The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 377. Li Bu got out of the car immediately, but Daodu was taller than her now. When she saw the chubby Li Bu, Daodu jumped on her with joy. Xiao! Murongxiu, who was sitting in the passenger seat, was frightened. Don't worry, Li Chen stopped the car with a smile and got out of the car. Li Nanfei pulled the shy Li Zifeng out of the car as well. He. Li Bu, who was thrown to the ground by Daodu, was not afraid at all. Holding Daodu's furry head, she called affectionately, Daodu, I miss you so much. Do you miss me? Ah, Wu. As soon as Murongxiu got out of the car, she saw her little daughter hugging a gray-white dog affectionately. The dog lay in Li Bu's arms, letting Li Bu hold it, making humane wooing sounds. Daodu! Li Nanfei pulled Li Zifeng, who was a little embarrassed but very interested in Daodu, out of the car and ran to Daodu and shouted. Daodu, who was just immersed in the joy of meeting his little master, immediately widened his eyes. Woof woof! Daodu immediately pounced on Li Nanfei, and this scene made Murongxiu and Li Zifeng terrified. But Daodu stood up when he was about to pounce on Li Nanfei. He put his two front legs on Li Nanfei's shoulders and licked Li Nanfei's handsome face. Oh! Li Nanfei was licked with saliva on his face, but he couldn't hate it. Ah! You miss me too, right? I know, you definitely miss me more than Xiao. Murongxiu looked at her youngest son communicating with the dog seriously, and couldn't help but look at Li Chen with doubt in her life and said, Xiaofei, can you understand what a dog says? Li Chen rolled his eyes, he could understand nothing. Daodu was complaining about Li Nanfei being too narcissistic. It still misses Xiao more. Li Chen, who has now perfectly mastered the god-level beast taming technique, understands Daodu's complaints, which is not difficult at all. Only Li Nanfei is so narcissistic that he thinks Daodu misses him more. Without waiting for Li Nanfei to continue showing off in front of his second sister Li Zifeng, Daodu suddenly looked at Li Chen, then whimpered and ran to Li Chen's legs and rubbed against him. Unfortunately, even if it stood up, it could only barely reach Li Chen's thigh. Li Chen then squatted down and touched Daodu's dog head, and Daodu immediately showed a look of enjoyment. Master, Daodu misses you so much. Daodu whimpered. I miss you too, Li Chen smiled, pulling the somewhat frightened Murongxiu and said, this is the mistress of our family. Daodu was startled, then looked at Li Nanfei and Li Bu again, and barked. Yes, it's their mother. Ao, Daodu immediately circled around Murongxiu happily, and then leaned against Murongxiu's legs and asked her to touch his head. Murongxiu was also warmed by Daodu's scene, so she stretched out her little hand and gently stroked Daodu, and Daodu stuck to Murongxiu and didn't want to leave. Dead dog, too much! Li Chen forcibly pulled Daodu away, causing Daodu to howl in dissatisfaction. Li Chen was also speechless. How could this dog change color after only 10 or 20 days of not seeing it? A dog knows that when it sees the mistress, it forgets the male owner. Murongxiu was amused, and the tension in her heart disappeared most of the time. Xiao! Xiaofei! An excited and trembling voice sounded. Li Bu, who was leading Daodu and her second sister Li Zifeng to be intimate, turned her head suddenly. Her big eyes, black and bright, looked at Li Chuanlong, who was pushing a bicycle. Great-grandfather. Li Biwu saw the man slightly hunched back, and her mouth curled. The longing for him during this period burst out like a flood. Great-grandfather. Li Biwu's big tears began to fall, and then she ran towards Li Chuanlong with her short legs. Li Nanfei wanted to rush over, but he ran back halfway and pulled Li Zifeng, who was standing there blankly and a little at a loss, to run towards Li Chuanlong. Li Chuanlong hurriedly parked his bicycle in a panic and said excitedly, "Run slower, run slower." As he said that, he accelerated his staggering pace and walked towards Li Biwu, who was rushing over. Finally, the little girl crashed into Li Chuanlong's arms and cried, Great-grandfather, Xiao misses you so much." The little girl is sentimental, and tears come as soon as she says it. While crying, she sucked her snot. Li Chuanlong seemed to have been prepared. He took out a tissue from his pocket, gently wiped Li Biwu's tears, pinched her cute little nose and said, "Grandpa misses Xiao too. Is Xiao well behaved recently?" "Yeah, Xiao is very well behaved." Li Biwu wiped her nose fiercely at Li Chuanlong's signal. "Grandpa," Li Nanfei stood in front of Li Chuanlong. Li Chuanlong looked at Li Zifeng, who was led by Li Nanfei, and tears flashed in his eyes. "Good child." Li Nanfei pulled Li Zifeng and said, "Grandpa, this is my second sister. Li Zifeng." Li Zifeng looked at the old man in front of her, still a little shy and embarrassed, and timidly called him Grandpa. "Hey," Li Chuanlong finally waited for the sentence, and tears suddenly flowed down his face. He hugged the three children, but he cried first. "All good children, all good children." Li Zifeng, who was hugged tightly by Li Chuanlong, had a red face. Li Zifeng, who had inherited the excellent genes of Li Chen and Murong Shui, was now so shy that she looked like a stunning daughter, a pure lady. She tilted her head and looked at the old man in front of her. Very kind. Not as cold as Grandpa, nor as annoying as Grandpa. For the first time, Li Zifeng felt what it felt like to be pampered by the elders in her family. She finally understood why Xiao Wu and Xiao Fei were willing to stay here. Li Zifeng gently and slowly stretched out her little hand, and then hugged the old man in front of her tightly. Oops! Li Zifeng, Li Nanfei, and Li Chuanlong were all interrupted. Xiao Wu is out of breath. Li Chen. Murong Shui. Li Chuanlong. The warm atmosphere of a good family reunion is always completely destroyed by Li Biwu's casual words. Li Biwu hugged Li Chuanlong's neck domineeringly, and announced, "Please contact my great-grandfather, can you all leave?" Li Nanfei. Li Zifeng. Ha ha ha. Li Chuanlong couldn't help laughing after hearing this. "Come, let's see what delicious food Grandpa brought you." Huh. Li Biwu watched Li Chuanlong take out the prepared white rabbit toffee, his eyes instantly brightened, and he took a sip on Li Chuanlong's cheek. Bop. Enough, enough. Li Chuanlong was kissed from ear to ear by his great-granddaughter, Xiao Fei. "Xiao Feng, you have it too." The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 378. Looking at the candy handed over by Li Chuanlong, Li Zifeng took it without any hesitation. Ahem. Grandpa. Li Chen saw that the others were almost warm, so he coughed and shouted. Li Chuanlong then stood up with Li Biwu, who was eating candy, and just hummed lightly. Li Chen. What do you mean? Treat differently? I used to be your favorite grandson. You treat me like this? With Xiao and Xiaofei, you don't like my eldest grandson, right? Li Chen said that he was very hurt, so he had to pull Murong Shui, who was also nervous, unconfident, and worried, and said, "Murong Shui, your granddaughter-in-law." She. Okay, Li Chuanlong couldn't help interrupting, looking at Murong Shui carefully, always felt that this girl was very familiar. Is it because of Xiao and the others? Grandpa. Murong Shui called out a little embarrassedly. Ali Chuanlong couldn't hold it anymore and laughed out loud, come on, let Grandpa see you. Murong Xiu blushed, and Li Biwu, who was held by Li Chuanlong, waved at her. Murong Xiu had no choice but to walk in front of Li Chuanlong. She really didn't expect that they would meet under such circumstances. The heartbeat was a bit too fast. It was not rehearsed in her mind at all. Li Chuanlong looked at the woman in front of him who was obviously too beautiful, but also a little nervous and shy, and said with satisfaction, "You have worked hard along the way. I have prepared the dishes. Let's have a good meal as a family." "Okay. Then let's go home. Grandpa will cook whatever you want to eat." "Thank you, Grandpa." "Family members don't talk about different things," Li Chuanlong said with a smile. His kind attitude also greatly reduced the pressure in Murong Xiu's heart. "Grandpa," Li Chen saw that Li Chuanlong was about to carry Li Biwu back, and hurriedly said, "Let's take a car back." "What car? What's there to take? You're so lazy, what's wrong with walking a few steps?" Li Chuanlong glared at Li Chen with a stern face. "That's right, I won't take a car," Li Nanfei snorted. "Li Nanfei, you." Li Chen was shocked. This little son was getting bold. "Why are you glaring?" "Your son is right." Li Chuanlong stood in front of Li Nanfei. "If I see you glaring at the child again, I won't forgive you." Li Chen. Biased. For the first time, Li Chen felt that the old man was simply biased to the extreme. "Shui, do you mind walking with me, an old man?" Li Chuanlong said with a smile on his face, looking at Murong Xiu, "in fact, not far from home." No mind. Murong Xiu didn't dare to refuse, so she took Li Nanfei and Li Zifeng and followed Li Chuanlong. "Daodu, let's get in the car." Li Chen tied up Li Chuanlong's car on the roof and said to Daodu. Daodu looked at Li Chen's car, then looked at Li Zifeng and Murong Xiu, and ran away decisively. "Woof woof. Slutty dog." Li Chen looked at Daodu who was chasing after him and cursed. Seeing Daodu rubbing against Murong Xiu with a dog-licking look on his face, Li Chen got angry. In a relationship, everyone is welcome except for himself. Li Chen drove the car helplessly and followed the family slowly. "Hey, old man Li, who is this?" Many people who were planting crops in the village saw Li Chuanlong. There was no way, an old man with an outstanding temperament and beautiful woman, and 3 children, it was hard not to be noticed. The key is that Li Chen could only drive behind. Li Chuanlong immediately straightened his chest, lifted Li Biwu higher, and said, "This is my great-granddaughter, my biological child. Isn't this Xiao?" "Xiao is really Li Chen's child." "Of course not," Li Chuanlong said proudly, "the paternity test has been done, 100% biological." "Then this is..." "Oh, my granddaughter-in-law," Li Chuanlong almost shouted at the top of his voice. Murong Shui and Li Chen wanted to lower their heads. "Grandpa, you founded the Mo family business after all, and you are also an old man with knowledge and culture. How come after staying in the village for a long time, you are no different from other old men in showing off?" Li Chen finally understood why Li Chuanlong did not take the car but walked home. This is clearly showing off. Now their family has taken root in Jia village again, and they have initially established themselves. Although the village is not harmonious now, it is indeed much better than before. Li Chuanlong was envious of others who were enjoying their grandchildren. He didn't have a chance to show off before. This time is different. Even his grandson's wife is back. Isn't it time to show off? Whatever happened in the village, wouldn't it spread quickly? Li Chen is back, this is big news. But Li Chen also brought back a woman who is as beautiful as a fairy. What else can we do? Da Long, Da Long. I heard that Li Chen is back. Linda Long, who was digging the ground, wiped the sweat off his face and said, he was going to come back anyway, why are you making such a fuss? I heard that he brought back 3 children this time, and also brought back the mother of the children. I heard that the woman is so beautiful, Juanza said excitedly, it is said that she is as beautiful as a fairy. Linda Long sneered at the words. What fairy is not a fairy? Where in the world can there be so many fairies? It goes without saying that he had a close relationship with Li Chen's family. At the beginning, he spoke up for justice and rushed over to support Li Chen without fear of death. Li Chen also remembered it in his heart. His daughter Lin Xiaoqing was also one of Li Biwu's playmates at that time. However, he would not join in the fun. It was a good thing that Li Chen brought his wife back, but there was no need to join in the fun. Li Chuanlong walked back with an arrogant look on his face. He almost shouted on the radio, my grandson is back with his beautiful wife. Li Chen just wanted to get home quickly, and Murong Shui was even more so. If I had known earlier, I would not have agreed. Murong Shui didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When the people in the village came over to see her, she felt quite embarrassed. She didn't know whether to be happy or sad. After all, Grandpa's behavior was equivalent to recognizing her. If he was not satisfied, he would naturally not let her show up in a big way. But this appearance made Murong Shui feel like an exhibit. Li Chen could only follow his grandfather and his wife silently. When he met someone familiar, he had to offer a cigarette. It was so embarrassing. After dawdling for more than half an hour, he finally got home. Li Chen and Murong Xue both felt like they had survived a disaster. As expected, people are all the same when they get old. The key point is that Li Chen and Murong Xue were tired, but Li Chuanlong still looked energetic. Xiao, go play by yourself first, and your great-grandfather will cook for you. Okay. Li Biwu immediately ran out of the door to find his little wooden horse. Unlike Li Biwu and Li Nanfei who seemed to be back home, Li Zifeng looked at this new home with curiosity in her eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami Gua. Chapter 379. Home is still the old home. But after returning to this home, Li Chen found that he was completely relaxed. Compared with the prosperity of the big city, this place can be said to be quite backward. Even the cement road has just been built. Apart from that, everything here is very primitive. The house is old, and everything is backward. Murong Shui is more or less a little uncomfortable, but she is also looking at this new home like her eldest daughter. Unlike the capital, here I feel relaxed. There are green plants and endless fields all around. Obviously nothing has been done, but it seems that everything has slowed down. Although the house is old, Li Chuanlong has kept it very clean and tidy. The large room that belongs to Li Chen is even replaced with brand new sheets and quilts by Li Chuanlong. Even Li Chuanlong changed a large bed for Li Chen, and put a small bed next to it. When Murong Shui, who was brought to the room by Li Chen, saw the small bed, she couldn't help but tremble slightly in her heart. An indescribable little touch stirred up waves in her heart. Hey, why is there a bed here? Li Biwu obviously still remembered the environment here. The newly added small bed obviously conflicted with her memory. The small bed was not very big, but it was no problem for 2 or 3 children to sleep. Although the rural house was old, the room built at that time was very large, and there was still a lot of space even if 2 beds, one large and one small, were placed. For the time being, I can only make do with it, Li Chen apologized. It doesn't matter, Murong Shui shook her head slightly, took Li Chen's hand and said, I don't care about those things. I want to rebuild this house, how about it? Li Chen said. Murong Shui was stunned. Obviously she didn't expect Li Chen to say that. She knew that Li Chen was accommodating herself. But she was still warm in her heart. Okay. In fact, Li Chen had planned to build a new house, but he didn't expect that there would be so many changes when sending the two little guys back. Now that there are more people in the family, this dilapidated old house is naturally not enough. Moreover, he has a lot of money now, so he doesn't need to worry about that at all. Dad, Li Nanfei grabbed Li Chen, who was about to take Murong Shui to her home, and looked at him with resentment. What's wrong? Gun, I want a gun, Li Nanfei said. He has been holding back on this for a long time. From sending Li Biwu back to now, Li Chen has not taken the initiative to buy him a colorful bubble gun. But as a brother, he can't snatch his sister's toys, which makes him very depressed. Today, Li Biwu once again took out the colorful bubble gun that Li Chen had spent a huge amount of money to buy, and he couldn't help it after all. Li Chen didn't expect that Li Nanfei, this little guy, could be so patient that he didn't say it until now, so he said, "Go look for it in your suitcase yourself." Li Nanfei's eyes widened, and he looked at Li Chen in disbelief. "You prepared it for me a long time ago. You didn't find it yourself, so you can't blame me." Li Chen shrugged. Li Nanfei screamed and was about to rush away, but thinking that it seemed impolite to do so, he returned to Li Chen's side, blushing and shyly saying, "Come here." Li Chen looked at Li Nanfei's awkward look, and also held back his smile and lowered his head. Bo! Li Nanfei pecked Li Chen's cheek and ran away with a red face. Ha ha ha! Li Chen laughed happily. Murong Xiu saw the whole process, and it must be said that Li Chen has become more and more adapted to the role of father. Looking at his shy son running away, Li Chen ignored them. The countryside is not like the city, you can have fun as much as you want. Now with Daodu, the dog, the three siblings are having a lot of fun. Li Chen and Murong Xiu rarely have space for two people, so he took the opportunity to hold Murong Xiu's little hand, and the two walked out of the house. At this moment, the sunset was smudged, and the sky was red, which was particularly beautiful. Cicadas and birds chirped in an endless stream. The two large ponds next to the house are now extremely rich in resources. Murong Shui was like a silly girl who had never seen the world, startled and screamed. What is this? Ginseng. What is this? Fig. What is this? This is a hug of love. Li Chen. Ahem, this is loving you for 10,000 years. Murong Shui didn't want to pay attention to Li Chen, who was beginning to be unserious, and began to look at the scenery that belonged to the countryside alone. She admitted that she was very uncomfortable at first because the pace was too slow. But slowly, she began to like this feeling. The key is that after Li Chen got rid of his son and daughter, he was like a clingy person, holding her and not letting go. Only now no one saw it, otherwise she really didn't know what to say. Let's have a good rest today. Li Chen hugged Murong Shui, and the two stood in the west, looking at the sunset. The birds in the distance were also standing on the branches in pairs, as if they were imitating. Okay. I'll take you to meet our Li family's relatives tomorrow, Li Chen said quietly. Although they didn't show a good face to our family, they are kind-hearted and have always helped me and Grandpa. What a strange group of guys. They clearly took turns helping me and Grandpa, but they refused to admit it even if they were beaten to death. They always had a stern face. Li Chen laughed as he spoke. Is this the tsundere nature of the old Li family? Murong Xiu listened quietly. At this moment, her mind was very calm. It's time to eat. As Li Chuanlong shouted, Li Chen shuddered. Let's go eat. Li Chen pulled Murong Xiu into the house quickly. The sky in summer always gets dark later. Dinner, 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 dinner. Li Biwu jumped a few times, but unfortunately it was not as high as the table, and she couldn't see the dishes, so she stamped her feet anxiously. As soon as Li Chen appeared, Li Biwu immediately pounced on Li Chen, anxious as if someone was going to snatch her food. Hug me. Li Chen dragged the stool over slowly, then picked up Li Biwu and put her on the chair. Li Nanfei and Li Zifeng sat side by side, while Murong Shui sat alone. Li Chen had to look at Li Biwu. The dishes on the table were not delicacies from the mountains or the sea, but had the unique taste of the mountains and wilds. Fried pork with peppers, green peppers, and eggplants, scrambled eggs with ham, a bowl of lobster tail meat, a plate of potato chips and a portion of braised spare ribs. Although there were not many dishes, it was enough for the whole family. Ro, Li Biwu pointed at the lobster meat, his eyes seemed to be shining. Do you want to wash it? No, Li Biwu thought about it and felt that he could definitely eat spicy food. Hearing this, Li Chen showed a doubtful look. Are you sure? Yeah. The Country Life of a Rich Dad. Author, Wo Shihami. Chapter 380. Li Biwu has already started to drool. The dishes in the capital are not as appetizing as the dishes here. Since the little girl insisted on doing so, Li Chen decided to fulfill her wish. After all, she is no longer a 3-year-old child. Ah! Xiao Feng, eat more. Li Chuanlong picked up 2 pieces of pork ribs for Li Zifeng and then picked up lobster tail meat for her, and carefully reminded her, this is a little spicy, can you eat it? Li Zifeng rarely experienced such care and was a little overwhelmed. She was obviously very excited in her heart, but she couldn't say the words when she came to her mouth. My sister doesn't eat it. Li Nanfei glanced at the meat in Li Zifeng's bowl and was about to reach out for chopsticks to pick it up. Li Zifeng, who was still moved, pressed Li Nanfei's head with one hand, and Li Nanfei's facial features were distorted by the pain. Thank you, great-grandfather, I like spicy food the most. Li Zifeng suppressed her brother with one hand, and showed a touch of shyness and embarrassment. Li Chuanlong was stunned. He seemed to have seen something extraordinary. He thought that the old Li family had a lady from a noble family. Feelings, I was overthinking. Li Zifeng lowered her head and glared at Li Nanfei, her eyes full of murderous intent. Li Nanfei, you are dead. I haven't even established my character. Li Nanfei touched his head, and was almost pressed out of his brain by his second sister. Feeling the murderous aura from his second sister, Li Nanfei shuddered and moved his butt. I can't afford to offend you. Grandpa, you eat too. The dishes you cook are so delicious. Xiaofeng likes them so much, Li Zifeng said in a very soft voice. Click. Li Biwu raised his head suddenly, and his chopsticks fell. He looked at Li Zifeng in shock. What's wrong with my second sister? Why is she so weird? Li Nanfei, who was sitting aside, shuddered and silently ran to Murong Shui's side and sat down. I can't stand my second sister anymore. You are a strong woman, but you pretend to be weak. Isn't this disgusting? Li Chen and Murong Shui also looked at her quietly, and the room suddenly became very quiet. Li Zifeng's pretty little face was as red as a monkey's butt. Seeing that the eldest great-granddaughter was about to be unable to hold back, Li Chuanlong laughed and pulled Li Zifeng directly over. As long as you like it, I will make it for you in the future. Li Zifeng's eyes widened, flashing with tears. Really? Of course it's true, Li Chuanlong sighed. Look at you, you are so thin, you dare not say that you are my Li family's child. My Li family's children are not so thin. Li Zifeng immediately said, they all say I am fat. Who dares? See if the old man can't beat him to death. Li Chuanlong ignored the shocked Li Chen and others and said, just eat in the future, my old Li family can still afford this little food. Li Chen licked his lips and said, Grandpa, in fact, Xiaofeng. Shut up. Don't worry about your dad was a good-for-nothing at the beginning, and you didn't inherit this from him. I still feel sorry, Xiao inherited it very well, Li Chuanlong sighed. At the same time, Murongxiu, Li Biwu, and Li Nanfei all looked at Li Chen. Li Chen's old face blushed and said, how many years has this happened? Hiss. Li Chen glanced at his waist, looking at Murongxiu, who was looking at him with murderous eyes, and couldn't help but wail, "Grandpa cheated me." Li Zifeng blinked her eyes and continued in a delicate tone, "So, Xiao Wu is such a big eater, is it also because of Dad?" Of course, Li Chuanlong affirmed. Murong Shui hit harder. "I thought Xiao Wu was like me, and the source of her feelings was still with you. Come on, Grandpa's fried pork with peppers is also very delicious, especially with rice." "Thank you, great-grandfather. This ribs is good to eat, you eat more." "Thank you, great-grandfather. I want it too." Li Biwu was not happy. Great-grandfather actually didn't like Xiao Wu. So, Li Chen, who was supposed to take care of Li Biwu, was left aside. Li Chuanlong now needs to take care of two people, one is Li Zifeng and the other is Li Biwu. The two sisters are competing in eating. Li Nanfei glanced at the second sister, who pretended to be a lady, curled her lips, and said, "I wonder how long you can pretend." This meal really made Li Chen upset. "Come on, tell me about your slander against me." Murong Shui looked at Li Chen and started to bring up the past. Didn't you forget it?" "Forgot. I still feel guilty and think I ate too much." "It seems that you framed me." Murong Shui pinched Li Chen's ear. "Wife, we can't count it this way, right? She inherited from me, so she can naturally inherit from you." "You mean I'm a glutton?" No. "Then you don't love me anymore." "I love you." Li Chen wanted to cry but had no tears. "Grandpa, you cheated me." "Woo woo." Li Biwu's mouth was red and swollen, and she cried loudly, tears dripping down. Li Chen glanced at her and didn't comfort her. Now she is Li Chuanlong's treasure, it's not his turn to comfort her. Don't cry, it's all your father's fault, let's go beat up Dad, okay?" "Can I?" Li Biwu cried while looking at her great-grandfather. "Of course," Li Chuanlong said affirmatively. "Li Chen, you don't comfort the crying child, go wash the dishes," Li Chuanlong ordered domineeringly. Seeing that Li Biwu had been amused and forgot about the fact that she was crying because of the spiciness, he pulled his great-grandfather to cut bamboo together. Li Zifeng also wanted a childhood sweetheart. Li Chuanlong was of course very happy. In the sunset, beside the reclining chair, Mr. Li was forced to accept a series of unequal agreements, such as giving Murongxiu a massage in the future. Murongxiu lay on the reclining chair, facing the sunset, blowing the cool breeze, and someone was massaging her. It was really comfortable. Of course, the main reason was that Li Chuanlong was not here. Li Chuanlong was pestered by Li Zifeng to ask for a childhood sweetheart, and now Li Chuanlong was dragging 3 people with a dog, and he didn't feel tired at all. This made Li Chen both relieved and jealous. When did his old man become so popular? Just when Li Chen was distracted, he found that Murongxiu had stood up and was massaging him. You. I can't let you serve me all the time. You've worked hard during this period. Are you comfortable? Murong Shui asked softly. Comfortable? Li Chen smiled. Between husband and wife, it is mutual dedication, so that it will last long. Li Chuanlong, who was carrying 3 people and a dog, just came from the corner. He saw Li Chen sitting like a master, but his granddaughter-in-law was giving him a massage. He was immediately furious. Why don't you go to heaven? Grandpa, Li Chen was surprised. Shui, is this guy bullying you again? Tell Grandpa, see if Grandpa can't beat him to death.